Captain John Davis couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of the Borealis Nebula spread out before them on the bridge view screen. Its pink and blue wisps of cosmic dust and gas reminded him of Earth's own northern lights. But the inhospitable void served as more than just scenery. The magnetic fields and ionized particles of nebula provided the perfect hiding spot for the main human fleet. Out here on the fringe of Proxenuth-controlled space, few alien craft ventured this far into the stellar nurseries. "Helm, take us into that protostar cluster. Nice and slow," Davis ordered. Their captured alien frigate handled like a dream, far swifter than anything humanity had built. But 80 years of harsh occupation had taught caution, even though the Proxenuth had been beaten back for now. Their liberation had come at a steep cost. Most major cities laid in radioactive ruins. Billions perished under the brutal alien subjugation. Freedom was hard-won only through endless toil to understand and turn Proxenuth technology back against them. Who would have thought the aliens that looked like coldly logical walking computers had a tendency to install backdoors into their own networks? Davis chuckled to himself. Then he straightened, mind refocusing on the mission. Alliance High Command believed other elder races existed, once free but now also crushed underfoot the ever-expanding Proxenuth Empire. However, liberation of one solar system meant little if the aliens returned with full occupation fleets. For humanity to have a hope to survive, let alone remain free, they needed allies, fellow rebels, and resistance fighters from Proxenuth space. Hopefully, today's scouting run would uncover some. Lieutenant Commander Jane Ray glanced at the chronometer as their covert frigate crept below the fluctuating plasma currents of a simmering orange giant. They had been skirting the edges of Proxenuth-defended space for 72 hours now, scanning all bands for transmissions not matching known alien communication protocols. "Sir, sensors detecting artificial electromagnetic signals bearing 215 Mark 7, the science officer piped up. "Likely a planet or moon capable of supporting life." "What can you tell me about their traffic and hardware?" the captain asked, rising from his command chair. Ray scrutinized the incoming data, angling the frigate to tighten beam reception. "It's mostly analog radio signals so far, very simple modulation with minimal data encoding," she reported. That likely ruled out any advanced races, given that crude EM. "Let's get closer to take a peek at least. They may still prove useful for our cause," Davis decided after some thought. "Comms, open a standard hailing frequency just in case." As they approached along a looping elliptical vector to remain hidden in the star's corona, Ray examined the planet through sensors and scopes. Class M atmosphere, nitrogen-oxygen mix, and plenty of oceans it seemed given the blue-green hues. But what drew their attention were the continents covered by sprawling red-hued vegetation. Something down there reflected light differently. "Sir, movement spotted in Sector 5, called out the tactical officer. "Appear to be ground vehicles leading a large herd." Ray quickly shifted optical magnification feeds to the bridge. Lumbering through a lush grassland, moved hundreds of four-legged creatures, flanked on both sides by boxy-wheeled transports with enclosed passenger compartments. Ray squinted closer at the bipedal beings packed inside. Their torsos and upper limbs looked off-like mammals, but the heads were distinctly canine. Kangaroos, maybe? But what were those vehicles about, shepherding beasts like sheep? This was no modern society, but neither did it match records of first contact with alien Bronze or Iron Age cultures. Puzzling indeed. "Let's take a shuttle down and get a closer look at these people," Captain Davis declared, after much careful deliberation of their mysterious discovery. Whatever passed as the dominant sentient race here obviously utilized. Technology yet had not advanced very far. Still, they had numbers and seemed organized. Valuable traits for resistance building. Lieutenant Ray prepped the first contact team. Their kit included lightweight powered armor vests beneath green camouflaged uniforms devoid of insignia that marked them as human. Only their own native weapons were carried just in case, plasma bolt pistols and atomizer rifles capable of stunning targets. They wanted peaceful contact, but 80 years of occupation had bred wariness of alien intentions. "Engaging cloaking field," Ray stated as their stealth shuttle broke atmosphere. Refraction tiles along the smooth black hull would allow an invisible landing several kilometers from the unusual caravan spotted earlier. She brought their craft down silently in a meadow, door sliding open to allow the team's exit down the ramp. From here, the red-hued grasslands and purple-leafed trees reminded Davis of the American Southwest, but three-toed tracks and powerful scent spores revealed their bestial companions nearby. "Fan out 100 meters and approach the vehicles slowly, hands raised and weapons slung across your backs," Davis commanded through clenched teeth. He moved up through the chest-high grass towards the parked wheeled transport several meters ahead. As the team fanned into a ragged skirmish line, several previously unseen escorts suddenly stood, projectile firearms in their clawed hands. "Hold fire!" Davis yelled, raising his gloved hands higher while tapped his wrist controller to highlight his team icons on their armor for visibility. The last thing he wanted was the contact to go hot based on appearances. And while the bipedal canines had yet to fire, their weapons remained leveled unwaveringly at the captain. He had to communicate fast before trigger digits got nervous. Davis slowly enunciated in the Pro-Zenith standard language, which he hoped these beings understood. "We mean you no harm. My name is Davis, captain of the human ship Orion. What is your species called?" One guard barked loudly, causing others to emerge from camouflage positions atop vehicles and around the perimeter. Their rough bark-like accented reply echoed in standard. "I am pack leader Aldo of the Rock 17th Karamu. Why have aliens come to our world?" The mantle of fur across Aldo's neck rippled as he scented the air deeply with his tapered muzzle. He took a hesitant step forward, spectacled eyes swiveling to track each team member. The captain maintained a passive stance. "My kind have fought long and hard to free ourselves from the Pro-Zenith that tried occupying our planet. We search for other races who also dream of living free." It appeared to Davis that these creatures either didn't know anything about humans as they were too curious to attack, or they knew enough not to fight a race who defeated the Pro-Zenith not too long ago. A series of yaps and guttural murmurs passed among the dozen guards at the term Pro-Zenith. He had struck a common chord of anger, it seemed. After several minutes, another kangaroo creature pushed through the pack towards Davis. "Me am Zek, Skyteller of the Karamu," he began solemnly. "Elders have survived Pros Takiova 100 years ago in Skyfire that destroy Meiji cities. We work land only way to survive under them now, the secret wish still to be free peoples again." Davis's pulse quickened at admission they too were conquered, but still resisted. This first contact was going better than hoped, or at least it seemed that way. Were these creatures being honest, or were they trying to get us to lower our guard so their Pro-Zenith masters could once again have human slaves, even if only a handful? Time will tell from here on out. Over the next few weeks, the Orion shuttle made regular runs planetside to establish relations with the kangaroo-like Kyuki of Rock 17. Once the captain used High Command's authorization codes to prove they were a human-led force independent of the Pro-Zenith Empire, the Amber Plains Karamu quickly welcomed them as esteemed guests. As Lieutenant Ray became more fluent in understanding the Kyuki's odd dialect of Standard, she was designated the team's cultural officer to better assess the canine bipeds for coalition recruitment. The Kyuki had indeed evolved from marsupial stock as early theories posited, giving their limbs increased power and balance. But it was the broad quest for knowledge and cunning focus that Ray found admirable in the Kyuki elders called Sky Talkers. Their lore masters had maintained detailed accounts of Rock's once graceful, sprawling cities prior to the devastating orbital bombardment so many years ago. While forced to adopt agriculture under Prozenith overseers ruling from urban city forts, the elders still recalled much about their people's rapid technological climb 200 years ago as innovators. Their unmatched metallurgy and micro-robotic medical science uplifted their civilization swiftly. However, their relative isolation meant by the time the Kyuki detected and translated the Prozenith scout ships emerging from Z-space to dock unheeded around Rock, the Kyuki fate was already sealed. The aliens seized lands and resources for their empire with overwhelming force, reducing once elegant glass towers to rubble and bringing these proud people to heel. But Davis realized early on the most valuable asset the Kyuki could bring the fledgling human resistance was their indomitable spirit and burning desire for justice. Their culture was innately hierarchical, with each Karamu clan forming intense loyalty bonds to larger pack leaders that coordinated vast swaths of continental trade networks. Their natural collectivism meant every member of a Karamu would willingly sacrifice themselves for the good of the pack once battle oaths were sworn to a cause under Skytalker guidance. Now, having verified their story, several questions came to mind. When Earth was invaded, no weapons or wide communications of any kind were allowed to the human masses, even though a large portion of the population was allowed to live in remote urban dwellings. The thought of a human with a rifle was unacceptable to the Prozenith. Does that mean the Kyuki were more trusted by the Prozenith, or did it mean humans were viewed as more likely to be troublesome? Captain Davis looked thoughtful as the shuttle rose from the surface of Rock 17. The potential of the Kyuki as military allies was promising. Though technologically primitive now, their strength, loyalty, and numbers could prove valuable. That is, if they were actually capable of having the spirit to fight back. Humanity took 80 years to fight back for our freedom. Does that mean humans value freedom more than this race? Set course for the nearest system, Helm. We still have more races to make contact with, he ordered, settling back in the command chair. Aye, sir. Spinning up the Z-drive now. The cloaked frigate slipped into folded space-time, racing beyond this small, liberated bubble of stars marked Danger on Prozenith stellar maps. Hopefully more subjugated planets awaited them, and hopefully the mission can continue with the same streak of luck. So far, no Prozenith ships have been encountered. To an experienced war veteran like Davis, that only meant his ship was riding on the coattails of fortune. After several weeks, a red dwarf loomed ahead. Scanners detecting multiple artificial constructs on 4th protoplanet. Appears a large automated station, reported Lieutenant Ray. Also signs of an active colony on planet with structures, machinery, and life forms. Davis rubbed his chin, intrigued that survivors eked out an existence beside minable asteroids. Take us into close orbit. Sensors on max. Let's identify who we're dealing with before hailing. First contact rarely went smoothly without proper context. Sir, it's the Myopie. Matches historical logs of when their homeworld Clash Tech was invaded, Ray exclaimed as hieroglyphic translations scrolled across the monitor. Insectoid race, terrestrial origin. They tried resisting with orbiting battle stations, but were overwhelmed. Not much more is noted in the ship's logs. It seems like keeping no more than a few entries per race was the usual way the Prozenith did business. Humans had a kinship with the cricket-like Myopie as fellow Earth species, as both had been subjugated, Davis realized. Rage simmered within him against the Empire. Allies were essential, and these beings knew that fight well. Open communications all channels, Davis commanded. Let us make friends among outcasts. Linguistic specialists Gomez and Gupta worked furiously to decode the fluting tones and chirps emanating from the small base nestled among asteroids on Clash Tech's outer moon. Myopie antennae vibrated rapidly in response to the first contact team's own attempt at greeting by garbled electrolarynx. AM and FM bands were tried unsuccessfully before the universal language of mathematics bridged understanding. Slowly, a translation key was constructed using factoring of prime numbers as reference, allowing garish flashing color patterns on suit sleeves to take on meaning. Yes, the myopy recognized human word shapes now as those also oppressed by the evil, piercing mind masters. Joy at not being so alone was brightly beamed from the formerly shy aliens. Davis was relieved this mining outpost still taps vital interplanetary data streams, allowing the faceless doers collective oversight of all off-world operations. Current encryption was quickly hacked, and news of unrest fermenting back in the core systems thrilled the ragged refugees. Turns out the insectoids had been biohacked into perfect obedience by the prozeniths. Yet scraps of original genetics survived inside embryos brought by fleeing queens during the attacks 200 years ago. Genetic sequencing proposed by Gupta soon had untainted crickets hatching stronger and smarter than existing worker castes. Davis smiled, hearing the distinctive chirps of defiance and rebellion ringing through the station. Humanity's clarion call had reached desperate ears. Now at last an uprising could ignite among the silenced. Davis gazed at the overhead dome ceiling in awe. Hundreds of thousands floral scent emitters released pungent aromas at drifting demanded by the huge chittering mob around the human delegation. Davis recognized this for the vital ritual consensus inhalation prequel to major social action. The mingled airborne particles spoke for the hive mind of females and males with homeworld midtones signaling primal memory recovery and future comprehension. The bitter underflow warned of wrath against inequity, yet lifted with sweetness of liberty's nectar after so long wandering wounded in darkness. The time had come for the crickets to sing again with inherent clarity. Rising as one, the globulous assembly rustled forward on myriad legs to consecrate the pact of rebellion with alien comrades. Their cry foretold conquering, whispered of assured freedom. Ancestral spirits rattled and soared throughout the massive arboretum chamber. Captain Davis blinked rapidly, feeling the almost spiritual connection between formerly lost organisms. How alike all living things truly were, wanting just to dwell safe and cherished. For a moment, he swore himself a changed being with expanded universe vision. A last duty then broke momentary lapse in chemoreceptive custody. Focus stirred, reflecting on practical strategy for the coming uprising, now jointly sworn with these newfound people. In few hours after solidifying more concrete militia cooperation, the shuttle would carry Davis and Ray farther outward, ever listening intently for silence's hidden voices indicating more pro-Zenith injustice. But no longer would any sapient suffer alone with humans expanding the camaraderie of resistance. Continuing their mission, Captain Davis ordered his ship back into deep space in search of other possible allies. Pro-Zenith databanks on other races were limited to only what the race could provide their empire and where they could get the provisions. No true care of the diverse culture or beauty of those under their rule. Similar to how a human has little to no reaction after stepping on an ant, so did the Pro-Zenith share that attitude with any race they conquered. Finally, after exploring the edge of Pro-Zenith-controlled space for months, Captain Davis came to the event he knew was inevitable. "Countermeasures active!" Lieutenant Ray barked as Pro-Zenith hunter drones swarmed the shuttle, translating back into normal spacetime around system's third moon. "Evasive Delta pattern set!" "Scramble communication packets, Chief. I want mock fleet comm logs and decoy beacons launched," Davis ordered the sensor operator while strapping tightly into bridge harness. He watched the shimmering ion trails of some dozen approaching hostiles close swiftly to firing range. While the treaty remained potentially salvageable, threat reduction here took point. Several solar days had passed en route to Outrider mining colony Ichtharora, 4 on fringes of Empire. They theorized many races might toil under hellworld conditions a while like Earth did. "Stand ready on plasma arrays, but hold for my volley command," the captain warned Weapons Control Officer Singh. "They still seem unsure of our profile even with transponder data masked." Sure enough, the slim hunter ships merely bracketed around Orion riding energy wakes in classic interrogation posture. Their scans likely detected human life forms inconsistent with recorded biometrics. Before comm lasers activated for surrender hails, Davis silently signaled Singh. Blinding threads of orange fury lashed out instantly, immolating 2 scouts, while the rest scattered from withering barrage. Jackson crowed upon seeing 3 destroyed hulks spinning into frozen gaseous shreds. Their element of masked mystery proved momentarily preserved by aggressive response. Prosenuths hesitated before engaging alien unknowns without orders or sufficient data analysis. By that slim margin lay victory as Shuttle jumped again, evading certain summary execution. "Hope that little ruckus didn't stir up the Empire too much." Davis laughed roughly. "Now let's go carefully probe whoever lives down amongst yon beige-hued ammonia storms. Scanners peep any energy footprints?" "Faintly, sir, but it may be worth checking out," replied Singh. "Let's do that then, and hope we don't get too many surprises," ordered Davis. Captain Davis blinked under the psychic screams of the bipedal feline creatures, so loud and deafening deep inside his own mind. It was at this point he wished he would have stayed on the bridge of his ship, instead of walking into this scene soon after stepping out of the away shuttle. According to the Orion AI's species compendium, these feline creatures known as the Ixiarts may have evolved on a high-gravity world hidden behind the swirling toxic atmosphere of this nameless moon. Generations of subjugation in the freezing tunnels seem to have forged the small feline bipeds into a hard yet bitter, spiteful people. Right there, Davis senses the abiding hatred woven into their very minds and souls. They may prove valuable allies after all, given time and training for the coming wars against the Prosenuths. The Ixiart leader, Jerkri, a massive specimen almost 4 feet tall, wears a pulsating golden crown that seems to amplify the psychic bellows and link his thoughts to the Horde's workers. Ancient surgical scars run down his body from crown to tail, muscular tissue obviously once removed to prevent rebellion before the cortical mesh implants pacified his people. Yet today, Jerkri walks tall and proud, gripping an old but polished claymore-like weapon, almost as ancient as the surgical scars. There is hatred in his eyes, but also a spark of hope. The question is that hope for renewed freedom or for revenge against the universe? It is impossible to know, but for now, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Ixiarts were definitely not friends, Davis thinks to himself. It is possible the Ixiarts have read his thoughts already, but it would be pointless to think differently, as any one of his crew would share those same thoughts. Or at least, they are not friends in the typical sense of allegiance, comradeship, or mutual assistance. The felinoid miners were so filled with spite, so bent only on vengeance and retaliation for wrongs done, that nothing else occupied their thoughts anymore, or at least that is what they projected through their psychic communication. For generation after generation, they had toiled in subjugation, as Prozenith overseers pumped from their resources to supply other far-flung parts of their galactic empire. The scars and implants were merely the physical manifestations of the psychological trauma and cultural decimation. No, these aliens were not friendly, but they would sure as hell be fearsome allies. The immense Ixiar chieftain Jerkri is clearly de facto ruler of the 10 clans in the region. His ornate psychic crown and house relic claymore mark him as a descendant of Imperator Ranix, last high chieftain of the entire race before their homeworld's fall lifetimes ago. While diminished in psychic strength and height due to restricted diets, today's Ixiarts retain the senses and swiftness of apex hunters from their feral past through secret eugenics manipulation. Touching the rocky tunnel floor, Davis can feel thousands of cat paws skitter lightly in the mines below, always listening, watching for their chance. Over the next few weeks, Lieutenant Commander Ray works alongside visiting human xenobiologists and linguists to build more substantive relations with Jerkri's Ixiart clan. Daily confrontation and standoffs ease slowly as both sides identify shared purpose and values from their traumatic histories. Captain Davis allows incremental shore missions by science teams as a calculated risk-response fitness gauge of potential new irregular warfare troops. He is not disappointed. Ixiart scouts instinctively master infiltration and ambush techniques on frozen terrain, even against sensor-equipped power-armored Marines in patrol scenarios. Their ridged claws and biomechanically spring-loaded hind limbs allow 50-meter pounces and mauling attacks against vehicle convoys that unnerve the most stoic human NCO. Small squads display uncanny situational awareness during close urban raids, rallying swiftly if ambushed themselves. While standoff distance ballistic targeting suffers due to poor eyesight, cunning heavy crossfire traps eliminate threats effectively. Davis witnesses infantry squads eagerly volunteer for quick brawl pits against Ixiarts and come away humbled by just brutally savage effect the waist-high aliens fight at point-blank range. Teeth, claws, spiked gauntlets, and elbow knives inflict real harm even through armored hostile encounter suits during these vicious, socializing rituals. There seems to be no restraint once an Ixiart group has selected a target. In the end, Davis opts to leave an open offer of military alliance and substantial arms assistance with High Chieftain Jerkry, rather than commit to deeper formal treaties. The near-feral aggression coded into Ixiart society means their reliability as actual comrades cannot be depended on. Given their generations of repressed rage against all outsiders, none could predict whether those formidable hunting skills might turn inward against former allies someday. Still, for the duration of the current uprising, the Ixiarts would serve well as unleashed terror troops against Prozinoth ground forces and installations. Flagship Orion's fabrication plants and replicators churn out plasma rifles, photon grenades, shoulder-fired rockets, and railguns then ferried down by the shuttle load. The bipeds accept these gifts readily enough, rumbling pleased yowls echoing among the icy tunnels as ordnance gets stockpiled for the coming guerrilla campaign. When Captain Davis and his first contact team finally departs the system back out into danger-haunted darkness, likely never to return this lifetime, no tears or farewells mark the separation. Instead, only cold, appraising predator stares burn watching until their vessel finally jumps to faster-than-light speeds. Captain Davis thought it would be interesting to learn how the Prozinoth were able to block their private thoughts from the Ixiarts. Although it had occurred to him the logical answer would be in the implants and genetic modifications done to them could have greatly limited the Ixiart's psychic abilities to mostly communication, as one would use an electronic leash to bring a dangerous pet to heel. But Davis knows in his heart someday word will reach human ears again of bold Ixiart clans' relentless stalking unwary patrols along the entire local Prozinoth cluster. Let the fearsome man-sized cats have their ruthless vengeance while it aligned to Liberator goals, Captain Davis knew the Ixiarts were a wild card at best. But it would be better to arm them and have them point those weapons at the Prozinoth. If anything, they could at least do untold damage to the Prozinoth ground forces. After the shared enemy is defeated, though the freedom fighters must be wary, lest those gleaming alien eyes someday turn starvation mad and come seeking human blood by themselves. Davis ordered his ship to return back to Earth. He had much to report to command, and a recommendation to keep a distant eye on this sector. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, but one day he may also be my enemy.